Good evening and welcome to the Unicity International Product Training Call. And now, I'd like to turn the call over to your host, Dr. Peter Verdegem, Chief Science Officer for Unicity.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this week's episode of the BioSlife Franchise Product Training Call. My name is Dr. Peter Verdegem. I'm the Chief Science Officer at Unicity International. This week's episode of the Product Training Call is about Enjuvenate. And I know a lot of people waited for this call because Enjuvenate is really a very popular product in our product line. A lot of people take Enjuvenate every day because they really feel the benefits of that product. Enjuvenate, the name says it, it's a product that I would like to call an anti-aging product. Of course, it doesn't really turn back the clock per se, but it does help you to regain some of the youth that you have in terms of biochemistry and other symptoms in your body. And that's why people take Enjuvenate. We're getting older and older all the time. If you look at the statistics, I mean, our healthcare system is improved, the way we live, our hygiene is improved. But when we get older, typically, biochemistry and other things tend to not like that very much. And I say that because, we're starting to develop problems here and there that really interfere with the happiness we have when we are aging. And that's why a lot of people are looking for, products that could help them with enjoying that old age better than without it. And, when we age, a lot of things tend to slowly get disconnected in our biochemistry. One thing I could think of is that we tend to develop little degenerative health concerns, like arthritis, like cardiovascular disease, like problems with our memory. Those are things that are really can be attributed to degenerative processes. What also happens is that, for example, our amount of lean muscle mass is going down. We tend to lose muscle, turn it into fat, and that really interferes with our ability to move freely, to do things like play golf and do other activities. And another thing is that we lose human growth hormone. And that is a very important aspect of the product Enjuvenate because it mainly is developed to increase human growth hormone to youthful levels. And human growth hormone is a very important hormone. It's made by the pituitary throughout our lives, and it is responsible for a lot of different functions in our body. Human growth hormone is a hormone that stimulates the growth of all tissues, hence the name, growth hormone. That's what it's supposed to do. It also stimulates insulin growth factors. It stimulates protein synthesis, so it increases your lean muscle mass. It decreases carbohydrate use in cells, and it mobilizes free fatty acids for energy production. So you can see that human growth hormone is a multitasking little hormone that is very important for overall activity levels, overall healthy levels, because the tissues are being stimulated to grow. We can synthesize more protein that we need to build our muscles to keep them healthy and strong, and it mobilizes free fatty acids for energy, so the energy that we need to do our daily activities. That's why human growth hormone is so important throughout our life. However, over time, it declines. It typically declines with age, and the peak of human growth hormone levels in our body is around 16 or 17 years. If you look at the studies, I'm looking here at one specific study that was done looking at the population in the U.S., and the peak of human growth hormone levels is really around before the age of 20. And that's pretty young. After the age of 20, it slowly starts to decline. And in fact, these studies show that when you reach 70 or so, the level is about at 20% of what they used to be of your peak level at around 20 years of age. So that's an issue because when those human growth hormones decline, you are going to face problems. You're going to decrease your muscle mass because, the protein is not so much synthesized anymore. So your muscle mass is going to be decreased. That means your strength is going to be decreased. That's why older people tend to be weak and are not so sure anymore walking around because, their muscles are basically getting weak. There is also a reduced human growth hormone means a reduced bone density and therefore an increased fracture rate, which is also something you want to prevent when you're aging, obviously. You get more adiposity, so you get more fat cells. You have a reduced immune response when your human growth hormone levels decline. Your memory and neural function suffers, and typically also you have poor sleep patterns. People don't sleep that well anymore when they have a declined human growth hormone level. And that overall reduces their quality of life, as been shown by studies. And the human growth hormone declines over time because the cells that make it, the pituitary that make human growth hormone, is going to be less releasing human growth hormone. There is a number of cells that make human growth hormone in the pituitary is going to be reduced. So that's basically the reason why these things go down over time. And many people already in the early ages knew that human growth hormone was very important to stay young. And some funny things really what happens. Here's a study that was done in the 19th century. In fact, that's what it started. In 1889, there was a doctor called Brown. Dr. Brown, what he actually did to increase growth hormone levels at his patients is inject their patients with mashed up dog testicles, believe it or not, to see, if the hormones that were present in those dog testicles would actually increase the youthfulness of his patients. And in fact, it helped. The potency went up, and old men that were his patients who actually felt younger again because of the hormones from those dog testicles. And it sounds strange, but there are also other doctors that done the same, also with different animals. Dr. Brinkley is known to inject testicles of billy goats into people. So, these are the early attempts to, in fact, raise human growth hormone. And today we have different ways of doing that, of course. One way is a well-known way, and that's basically injecting yourself with human growth hormone. That you can do. But there are some negative things about that. First of all, it's a price. I mean, it's very expensive. If you know people who have human growth hormone injections, they cost thousands of dollars to keep that up. But, it works. I mean, you do increase your human growth hormone levels, and that helps. Another potential more dangerous effect of injecting yourself with a hormone in general is that you bypass your body's natural way of regulating hormone levels. Your body is a complex biochemical machine that keeps certain hormones at certain levels and others at others, and they all talk together. They all have a balanced network of communication. And if you slightly increase one hormone, the other hormones are going to be reacting to that. Now, if you inject yourself with human growth hormone, just a bolus injection like that, you're going to completely mess up that natural control system of hormone communication. And that is, can be potentially dangerous. That's why people that inject themselves with human growth hormone have to be really sure they don't have any pre-cancer existing in their body, because if you're going to have an existing cancer cell somewhere and you inject yourself with human growth hormone, you may actually speed up the growth of that cancer. So that's not a very wise thing to do. What is wise is taking Enjuvenate. Enjuvenate has been designed to naturally, mildly elevate your human growth hormone. And one of the complexes in Enjuvenate that we call the super protein complex is doing that. Now, let me tell you a little bit how that works. That this is just one part of the Enjuvenate product, the super protein complex. The product, Enjuvenate, is a powder product, obviously, which you mix up and drink. It contains 21 grams of protein in this super protein complex per daily dose. And there are a couple of proteins in there, a whey protein, soy protein, rice protein, pea protein, beet protein. Why these different types of proteins? Well, proteins are very important to build lean muscle mass. They are the building blocks of muscle. Protein is the building block of muscle. That's why if you eat a steak, which is muscle, you're going to get a lot of protein. So the protein, typically elderly people don't have a lot of protein anymore in their diets. That's being reduced. And also their ability to use the protein amino acids to turn into their own lean muscle mass is going to be compromised. And that's why it's very important to keep up your protein levels in your diet. And you can do it by eating a lot of steak, but it's more effective to get you the pure, isolated, pristine protein that we've collected in Enjuvenate, and make sure that's the way you can more effectively keep up your protein levels high. The other things in the super protein complex is pure peptides, glutamine in particular. Glutamine, I have to tell you a little bit about proteins in general. Proteins are built from amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. Glutamine is one of those amino acids, and we've included it in a pure form in the super protein complex. And that amino acid, together with ornithine, which is the other amino acid in Enjuvenate, is a very important building block of human growth hormone. So your pituitary needs those amino acids to convert it into human growth hormone. That is how the human growth hormone is being synthesized. Over time, you will lose this ability. It's going to go to decline. But by boosting up your pure amino acid levels in your system, you keep your pituitary more active, and you make sure it puts out a lot more of this human growth hormone. We've studied the protein carefully. We had a couple of people take it over time and studied their human growth hormone levels in their blood, and clearly saw it being built up. It's not overnight. It takes time. What happens is every night, every time you take it, you have a little step up in your human growth hormone levels, and that builds up and builds up until it is at higher, more effective levels. That's how it works. It's also important for you to take the product, Enjuvenate, right before bed. That's the time when you take it. Why? Because the pituitary is most active at that time of the day. It's most active during the night, in fact. So if you take the building blocks for human growth hormone right before you go to bed, you have the best effect of it. That's why you want to take Enjuvenate right at that time. That's the super protein complex, the most important part of Enjuvenate. But there's more in there. We have a regenerative complex. Regeneration is very important. I told you that as you age, you face a lot of degenerative diseases. Degenerative diseases are caused by free radicals. The longer we live, the more damage we have incurred because of free radicals. This basically, goes over time. We add up damage due to free radicals, and if we are older, we have more damage. Now, fortunately, we have protective mechanisms to deal with that damage, but as we age, those mechanisms are not as effective anymore, and we start to accumulate damage. These damages are very important. Damage to protein can result in many diseases. Damage to DNA can cause cancer. Damage to lipids can cause heart disease. So these are very common, slowly accumulating damages in our body, and we want to prevent that. And that's why we have a regenerative complex in Enjuvenate. The main antioxidant in Enjuvenate is alpha-lipoic acid. This is a very specialty antioxidant. It's a fat-soluble antioxidant. It works perfectly, particularly combined with vitamin C, because the alpha-lipoic acid prevents free radical damage. By doing so, it becomes inactive, and vitamin C regenerates the alpha-lipoic acid again to make it active again. So that's why that combination is very important. Alpha-lipoic acid, specialty antioxidant. You find it a lot in diabetes treatment, for example. In Germany, alpha-lipoic acid is, in fact, a prescription medication. That's how strong it is. In the U.S., it's not, because it's actually a food component. Here we can buy it in a product like Enjuvenate. It's very effective in dealing with these free radicals. It's also part of Phytopath. That's why we put it in Phytopath, because Phytopath is our premium antioxidant product, and it needs alpha-lipoic acid in there because it's very beneficial. That's the regeneration complex. And then we have the pituitary complex. Pituitary complex has components in it like GABA, gamma-aminobutyric acid, and alpha-GPC. And those two things are very important for neurotransmission. Now, that is a concept I discussed in greater detail when I was discussing CognoBlend. But over time, particularly when we age, we tend to develop problems with our memory. And this is due to the fact that we lose the effect of neurotransmitters. Now, let me explain a little bit how neurotransmission works. You have in your brain, of course, is a big network of nerve cells. And these nerve cells have to communicate with each other in order for information to flow from one part of the brain to another part. And that communication from one nerve cell to another, is done by neurotransmitters. Neurotransmitters are little molecules that jump from one nerve cell to the other and take with them the information. Over time, that process is becoming less effective. Neurotransmitters are produced less, and the receptors on the cells are becoming less sensitive to neurotransmitters. That's when you start losing your memory, basically. And if you have that for a long time, it can develop into more serious conditions, just as Alzheimer. That's why we've made sure that the pituitary complex contains components like the GABA and the alpha-GPC that are important building blocks and signaling molecules to stimulate neurotransmission synthesis. It keeps up the pool of neurotransmitters high so that you're able to have a perfect functioning of your brain and your memory. And that's, of course, very important when you're aging. Those are the three main complexes in Enjuvenate: super protein, building lean muscle mass, boosting up your human growth hormone; regenerative, preventing free radical damage; and the pituitary, stimulating your neurotransmission synthesis. And then we also have included maca. Maca is a root from the high Andes in South America. And a lot of people, if you look up the literature about maca, it's a sexual enhancement product. But it's actually more than that. Yes, people that take it tend to be more active in sexual activity, which is a great benefit, obviously, but it does a lot more. The maca really boosts up your stamina, boosts up your overall well-being. It's kind of a ginseng, really, but a specific kind from South America. I think it's also called South American ginseng by some people, to stimulate their overall well-being, and that's just that's an effect that is very desirable in a product like Enjuvenate. It is a very well-liked product. A lot of people take it every day, and as I said, the time to take it is right before going to bed. The first thing you will experience is a better, more deep sleep, gets you rested better during the night. That's the first thing you're going to notice. And over time, when you take it, you're going to experience those other benefits like human growth hormone increasing effects, which is, you're going to notice that on all kinds of symptoms you have because of aging. But the first thing, the better sleep, and that is just perfect for a lot of people, because if you have good sleep, you're already so much better prepared for the day to come. Really, that's really why people take it every day. The product, it's because of their effects they experience during sleeping. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for calling in to this week's episode on Enjuvenate. I hope again you learned something, and I'm looking forward to have another call next week about an exciting, different topic. Thank you, and bye bye.
This concludes the Unicity International conference call for this evening. Thanks for joining us.